Hey guys, it's me, King Bullet. I'm back after 2 weeks. If you missed me, subscribe and like the video. Anyway, I wanted to reintroduce my friend Six back onto the channel.
Hello.
Today we're going to be discussing a surprisingly controversial topic, that being Kakuzu vs Pain. Six knows all about this matchup since he was involved heavily in, should we say, the Swagkage vs Ramen Pack debate. So before we get started, I just want to give a big shout out to all the goats, Big Papi and Antonio15 for becoming new members of my channel. From now on, I'm going to be shouting out all new members who join my channel. You can find the link to that in the description. Anyway, back to the main premise of the video. Of course, both are like Jinchuriki level, but Jinchuriki level is a little bit vague. Jinchuriki do get stronger over time, but the tier is like a little bit ambiguous and vague. There's a lot of leeway. I think me and Six can both agree that there's nothing Kakuzu can do if Pain decides to use Chibaku Tensei on him.
Yeah. If Chibaku Tensei comes out, Kakuzu's done. He's not Tails Naruto level or anything like that. He's finished if that comes up. And I don't think any of the people who even defend Kakuzu would think he would escape that jutsu anyway, So
let's be generous and assume that Pain's fighting in the Hidden Rain village, and so he can't use his flashy over-the-top ninjutsu versus this opponent in particular. So how does Kakuzu fare against like Pain in this scenario, basically? So let's kick this video off with strength. It goes without saying Kakuzu is pretty strong. In fact, he's said to be one of the most deadliest members of the Akatsuki by the official summaries. But this doesn't necessarily mean that he's one of the strongest members, right, Six?
Yeah, this definitely could be referring to Kakuzu's like pseudo-immortality, which should make his fights more difficult for his opponents. Or it could be referring to his like bloodthirsty nature, since Kakuzu, it is stated in the data book, since he's around the age of like 97 or so, he's sort of detached from humanity. Could be like, oh, Kakuzu's much more willing to kill you than any of the other Akatsuki members, so he's one of the deadliest ones, which kind of makes sense.
So moving on to the manga, Kakuzu does seem to have the upper hand over Kakashi like most of the time, but Kakashi does pierce like Kakuzu's body with the Raikiri. However, Kakuzu did have like this elemental disadvantage here, since he uses like Earth style and Kakashi uses Lightning style. Lightning style obviously being superior to like Earth style. So it's safe to say that Kakuzu is at least like Kakashi level, which is kind of backed up by the anime.
Because in the anime, both Kakashi and Kakuzu do swap hands multiple times. So, I mean, denying that Kakuzu is Kakashi level, it's kind of silly. Like, he's definitely around that tier, if not just a little bit further ahead.
Yeah, basically Kakuzu like swaps hands with Kakashi in the anime, and I think most people are fine with like using the anime, giving us like additional scenes explaining to the viewer how the fights actually like occur. And since Kishimoto does supervise the anime, at no point is he like, damn, like remove the parts where Kakuzu is getting beat up by Kakashi. I think like we can assume that Kishimoto pretty much sees that both in like a similar weight class.
Exactly. And like you could even say Kakashi sort of sees it that way as well. But there are some differences between the anime and manga, however. There's difference between the manga and the data book, but that invalidate the data books, you think?
Probably not, since like the data books are like pretty much made to explain what happens like in the manga, like a guide. Kodachi, like in Boruto, states that he doesn't necessarily let differences differentiate like the media if there ain't massive contradictions. Kakuzu couldn't really force Kakashi to use a Mangekyo Sharingan, right? So what does this actually mean, like scaling wise, Six?
The Mangekyo Sharingan does increase your chakra by several times, at least according to Shisui, and this is fairly backed up since like outputting a whole lot of chakra can sort of hurt you, and we know that Kakashi, whenever he uses Mangekyo, he gets sort of wiped out. Like this is consistent throughout the Kage Summit, and he even tells Naruto that if he used it versus Kakuzu, he'd end up in a hospital. I think it's fairly consistent for it taking Kakuzu a while to make Kakashi bring out the Mangekyo Sharingan versus with Pain, where he just sort of like accepts the fact that he's gonna die, so he's just trying to like extract information from him to give to other people. Just speaks to how much stronger Pain would be.
I think using the Mangekyo Sharingan is like a small price to pay in order to save like Team 10. He obviously does think of pulling it out really late on, but Kakashi was willing to literally use the Mangekyo Sharingan, the actual Kamui against Pain. Like, so I think he definitely sees Pain as his bigger threat, definitely stronger than like Kakuzu. He would have brought it out much earlier against Kakuzu if he did think they were of an equal level, like threat-wise, but that clearly isn't the case.
Yeah, so it's like there's sort of like some hope there, because Kakashi was getting kind of caught off guard by Kakuzu, because he's got like 5 hearts, right? Like even when Kakuzu uses his like big jutsu, he has to sort of get behind Kakashi in order to get the upper hand on him and slam him to the ground. So Kakashi still thinks he can like fight someone like Kakuzu without his Mangekyo Sharingan, but the same doesn't go for Pain.
And yeah, moving on to the Pain versus Kakashi fight, Pain definitely takes on like a way stronger Kakashi at the bare minimum, since he had like a mental resolve amp, right, Six?
Yeah, so the resolve amp comes from the weekly chapters, right, where it also says like Kakashi's a man who doesn't like to risk his own life, but now he's putting his life on the line, implying like before, he's not really putting his life on the line. He's just really fighting for the village. But I mean, like, and then even then against Kakuzu, like we said, he could have used the Mangekyo and he just didn't. But in that same scan, it does say that the will of fire burns within Kakashi, and that is just stated to be a mental image by like Hiruzen. We see it in the war with Tsunade. If we move on from that, Pain is also established as just the strongest man in the Akatsuki by these same statements, which you could apply to Kakuzu. And even if you don't want to apply it directly to Kakuzu, you could apply it to other members who would probably beat Kakuzu as well, because Kakuzu is dead by the time they makes the statement. But you can tell them who writes the statements and all that.
You're probably wondering who writes these like editorial notes for the weekly run, right? They're pretty much published alongside like the official printing of that page, so they're already like valid. Kishimoto like may write them, we're not too sure. Even if he doesn't, Kishimoto doesn't have like full ownership over Naruto anyway, right? It's rather technically owned by Shueisha, and they can kind of limit what Kishimoto publishes, but it's definitely like extra material.
Regardless of that, Pain is also just set up to be as like this invincible, unbeatable force of the Akatsuki, right? And not to say like if Jubi Madara descended down from the heavens that he would be unable to even touch full power Pain, but a lot of the times when Pain loses or he's even cornered, it's when he's not at full power. Whereas Obito's powers, surrounding them is sort of like a mystery. Those don't really have to apply to Obito, those statements, because we all do know, at least later, Obito is stronger than Pain. It's indicated by like the third data book. Even beside his stats, there's a question mark. They do this for a lot of ambiguous characters like Hashirama at the time, Minato. This just supports the idea of Pain being stronger than anyone Naruto's ever faced before.
We're also told that like Sage Mode Naruto and Pain are apparently in like this different realm of power according to Shikamaru's dad, and that like nobody should get involved in his fight. Shikamaru steps down and obliges to this, despite seeing how strong directly Kakuzu is. However, he still tries to fight Kakuzu, right? But he doesn't Pain, meaning he also sees Pain as his bigger threat. So Pain and Naruto are like in his different realm to what we've seen so far.
Yeah, so I mean narratively it just makes no sense for Pain to just be so much weaker than Kakuzu, even to the point where he's like getting speed blitzed in one shot.
Yeah, like another argument Kakuzu fanboys try to use, right, is that this whole idea Kakuzu scales to like the two tails. Some people like think like Kakuzu is
multi-continental
or like KCM like Naruto level purely based off this, because like Kakuzu blocks like this tail strike and fireball from the two tails, but this two tails later in the war arc harms KCM Naruto. So does this mean like Kakuzu scales to like KCM Naruto, who's apparently stronger than like Sage Mode Naruto? I don't think it really does, only because like it's contradicted by like a lot of scaling. So it's contradicted by the fact Kakuzu obviously gets harmed, killed by the Rasen Shuriken, and he seems to be around base Naruto's level. So there's no way like base Naruto is like KCM Naruto's level like later on in the series. Get what I mean, Six?
This does not make any sense, yeah. Like it would make no sense for Naruto to stay stagnant throughout the war. Actually, no, not even stay stagnant. This would imply he's weaker, which is just utterly absurd.
I think it's a weird interpretation. Like a better way to like interpret it, and it makes much more sense, is that this two tails is much weaker than the one in the war arc, which is completely plausible and uncontradicted, since like some of the Biju, right, get stronger over time. For example, the one tails is like far stronger in the war arc than it was like before, since it was able to like harm Madara now. And like we even have a nine tails being stated in Boruto reaching like Otsutsuki levels, being able to like fight Otsutsuki like Urashiki by itself now. Yeah,
Kurama even like makes fun of Shukaku for not being able to fight Urashiki on his own. But so if we apply like the same dumb logic that Kakuzu debaters use to Pain is also KCM Naruto's level. According to Zetsu, Mangekyo Sharingan Sasuke can't beat Naruto since he beat Pain. So Zetsu also believes Pain is stronger than Sasuke, who at this point has faced like a full power 8 tails, who has stopped playing around and found Sasuke as his toughest opponent. And then even in the weekly statements, Sasuke versus B is stated to be an all-out war. So you could say B was going all out against Sasuke.
Yeah.
And B even like sort of backs this up when he says the toughest opponent thing. The statement directly before it is that he got excited because he was facing his toughest opponent. That's why he went into the 8 tails form. So for reference, Killer Bee's been put in like life or death situations before, so it really just puts into perspective how strong Sasuke is. Like even if you go back to Jonin Minato is not forcing the full 8 tails out of B. Pain is stronger than Sasuke. So doesn't that mean Pain is also KCM level? Like purely based on the fact that the 8 tails in War Arc is close to KCM Naruto's level of power? No, the 8 tails just got stronger. I'd leave that line of scaling alone.
Exactly. So I think that should prove why like the whole KCM kind of scaling doesn't work, since like the Biju, right, they definitely get stronger like throughout the series, which should be like obvious since like other characters get stronger as well. Like we see Jinchuriki train to get stronger, so it does definitely make sense that they did get stronger. So moving on to speed, Kakuzu keeps up with like Kakashi. He's like able to like swap hands with him, at least in the anime, right? Kakuzu's like faster than Hidan. You know this 5 statement where like Hidan states he's the slowest member of Akatsuki, but there might still be like some sort of like relativity between Hidan and Kakuzu, since we know Kakashi was able to like fight both of them. These 3 characters are kind of like, I suppose, like in a similar weight class when it comes to speed.
Yeah, I mean, which you could argue like Kakuzu based on that would be like the second slowest in the Akatsuki, but
well, we're not saying like he's slow by any means, but like he seems to be like relative to like Hidan, Kakashi, all of these other characters, right?
Yeah, some people do think that Kakashi was blitzed by Kakuzu after he stabbed Kakuzu with his Raikiri. He charged another one and began to lunge toward Hidan. Kakuzu then stood up and kicked him. Now the issue here is Kakashi didn't really cover that much of a distance, and as everyone should know, you're not at full speed the minute you begin running. It's also in question if Kakashi was even starting to, or if Kakashi even began to run, or if he was just starting to run. In the anime nor manga even elaborates on this to let us know. This is still a feat for Kakashi as well, since he does tank the kick from Kakuzu. You know,
multi-continental.
No punches and so Kakashi's also multi-continental. So yeah, this isn't necessarily a speed blitz since Kakashi didn't cover that much of a distance, and Kakashi's also off guard. I mean, like, imagine, bro, you just killed someone and then they stand up, like, you're not expecting that. So
also, like, just to like add to this, right, Kakashi also outspeeds a transformed Kakuzu with his wind style, right? So he uses like wind style pressure damage. Kakashi's capable of like moving out the way of that, and also able to like react to like Kakuzu's lightning style false darkness. He blocks it with like a double Raikiri, so he's definitely able to like move and like react to his attacks anyway, right? And I think there was like another feat that like you mentioned, Six.
Yeah, so whenever Kakuzu grabs Naruto, Kakashi like intercepts it and he cuts Kakuzu's arm off. He cuts Kakuzu's like tendrils and gets away before Kakuzu can get him, which should just imply like you could use that as consistency, that earlier he was just caught off guard.
Moving on, like Naruto also like distracts Kakuzu, right, with like a clone and gets behind him. Kakuzu literally like notices like Naruto behind him, and he's like fully turned around when he like sees Naruto, but he's like literally incapable of like reacting to this Rasen Shuriken. He even has like enough time to say all of these things like in his head as well, but he's unable to react. I think like Naruto is definitely in like a similar speed via this feat alone.
After that, on the second attempt, Naruto like envisions Sasuke, using this as an opportunity to see if he can get stronger or strong enough to fight Sasuke. Meaning Naruto only sees Kakuzu as sort of like a hurdle or a catalyst he needs to get past, which is why he sort of feels like he needs to do it alone. He forces Kakuzu to jump and get behind him. Once again, Kakuzu notices, but there's nothing he can do to stop Naruto. He's turning around like, and Naruto just hits him. It's absurd to think Kakuzu's much faster than him.
Yeah, like even if you think Kakuzu's like a bit faster or whatever, you've got to admit Naruto's fast enough to like tag him and like do all these things like distract it.
Speed wise, the Demon Path is definitely faster than this base Naruto and probably Sage Naruto as well, since he demolishes him when his powers return and forces him to like a partial Kurama transformation. This form can repel and cut through the Shinra Tensei, something Sage Naruto was unable to do, and his movements are much quicker than Naruto's were before as well. It pushes Pain into running and escalates the fight to an entirely new level, to where he literally begins to use Chibaku Tensei, like we said earlier, would destroy Kakuzu.
Exactly.
Pain is visually far more beat up as his clothes begin to rip. Pain is capable of keeping away and tagging it, so he's in the same realm of speed as this Naruto for sure.
He definitely like stays ahead of him as well, and this kind of moves us on to like durability. Durability wise, Kakuzu was forced to like harden his skin using like the Diamond Morph, one of his strongest jutsu, just to block like one of Shikamaru's. He blocks like a kunai from him, right, using this ability. This kind of like implies that even Shikamaru can harm Kakuzu, and if that's the case, I'm pretty sure that like Pain can also harm Kakuzu, only because remember what I said earlier when I was like Shikamaru's dad told Shikamaru Sage Naruto and Pain are in like a different realm to them. Like I'm confident that Kakuzu can be harmed by Pain.
If you even get further into that, Shinra Tensei can literally like null ninjutsu, so it might just push Diamond Morph off of him completely. After his transformation in the anime, Kakuzu literally starts sweating, saying he can't be hit by the Rasen Shuriken or, you know, he's finished. Kakuzu doesn't know anything about his hack's properties, so he believes the raw power or AP is enough to kill him, just like face value. In the third data book, it stated Kakuzu has excellent analytical ability, so it'd be weird and frankly unlikely for him to just be lying or wrong in the situation. He's also thinking it in his head, so him lying would just be ridiculous. He then gets shredded by the second Rasen Shuriken, like completely. He's literally just unable to move.
Yeah.
And we know the Rasen Shuriken functions on like a subcellular level. You can get into that stuff. I'm not too good with this art.
Yeah, I don't think this ability is molecular or like atomic. Even like normal attacks can actually harm you on a cellular level. We also know that like Sasuke's like body began to hurt, like all of the cells in his body when he was using the Susanoo, from what I remember. Having cellular durability is like a common thing for like Naruto characters, since we know chakra travels through them, but it could permanently harm your chakra network, but that's not gonna necessarily shred you like Kakuzu. So Kakuzu was definitely overpowered by the Rasen Shuriken rather than like out-hacked by it.
When it comes to like Pain's durability, the Diva Path at full power is definitely durable enough to take attacks and strikes from Sage Naruto. Like, he literally does it. To be fair, the individual paths did get challenged by Sage Jiraiya and seem to be relative to base Naruto. And this isn't the same base Naruto Kakuzu got beat up by. This is one stronger, since he's going through vigorous training on Mount Miyaboku. That wasn't only Sage Mode training, he was training his body physically as well. So he learned the Taijutsu training with Paw. So the individual Pains aren't weak by any means. Getting into like ability and skill, Kakuzu has an advantage versus the paths of Pain collectively, since he's good at fighting groups of people according to the 4th data book. At least an advantage over normal people. Not like if they fight, Kakuzu's got the advantage. It's like, oh, home field. No. He's also probably smarter in analytical ability than Pain via both feats and data book statements. You can talk about Pain though.
Yeah. So when it comes to like Pain's abilities and skills, Pain does have a mastery like over like all chakra natures according to the data book with his Rinnegan. So like he should know lightning release. We know that lightning release can penetrate Kakuzu diamond morph. It can somewhat like negate it. Pain definitely has ways around even his defensive jutsu. There's also a lot of other Rinnegan abilities that he can use to beat up Kakuzu. He can probably rip his soul out with a Nakura path or negate all of his ninjutsu by like absorbing it.
What if he just like absorbs diamond morph?
Yeah, like just absorbs it.
I think we made it pretty clear. Naruto surpassed Kakashi in his own words, beating Kakuzu. Kakashi tells Kakuzu that he will be surpassed by the rest of the new generation as well, meaning Naruto beating Kakuzu was actually him like surpassing him.
Yeah.
So the whole narrative is like, yeah, Naruto's like sort of around or greater than like the Kakashi Kakuzu level, a little weaker than Sasuke. And then Naruto obviously learns Sage Mode, catapults him into an entirely new realm of power according to Shikamaru, or Shikamaru's dad, sorry, who's literally smarter than Shikamaru. Pain should be superior to Naruto, verbatim, forcing Naruto to use Kurama Chakra. I mean, it's just like a shonen villain thing as well. Like, Pain is just stronger than Kakuzu, the guy who came before him.
It's a shonen trope, right, that like villains surpass like previous villains. It doesn't always apply, but I definitely think it applies here, right? We know Naruto surpasses previous adversaries, and now Pain is like this new threat that he has to take on. He's definitely this force that like Naruto has to learn like a new form to take on. He needs to learn Sage Mode. He never really had to do this prior. It's not like he only needed the Rasen Shuriken to take him out like he did with Kakuzu. He had to master Rasen Shuriken. He had to learn Sage Mode. He had to learn all of these like new things. And I think that implies narratively Pain is stronger than Kakuzu. And also, I think like you mentioned to me, right, that on the back of one of the volume covers, it says something really interesting, right, Six?
Yeah, so it says on the back of volume 47 that Naruto can't afford to make any mistakes versus Pain. We're literally like, Naruto was making mistakes versus Kakuzu. Okay, so Naruto sends in 3 clones versus Kakuzu to evaluate his speed. Then those clones fail, but I mean, they were just for diversion anyway. Then Naruto goes in there with the Rasen Shuriken, fails, gets out, then is able to do it again and murks Kakuzu. If someone wants to argue, oh, that's because Naruto had allies in the fight versus Kakuzu, why do you not think he had them when he was versus Pain? Because Pain killed them all.
They weren't even allowed to get involved, like, anyway, right? Like, literally, like, Shikamaru's dad was saying that nobody should get involved in his fight because it's, like, on a completely different scale to, like, anything else or anybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, like, a lot of Kakuzu defenders are, like, these really edgy, like, debate lord scalers who don't really get how to engage with people, like, on a casual level. They don't understand that there's, like, this general narrative that Kishimoto utilizes. And I think that's where, like, discourse breaks between these, like, normal people and, like, these Kakuzu scalers. That's why there's always been, like, a lot of controversy around this topic. So yeah, that pretty much concludes the topic. There's literally no way that, like, Kakuzu can beat Pain, narratively, power scaling wise, and I would even say, like, feat wise, like with the Chibaku Tensei. If you think differently, then, like, you know where to find me. I'm gonna link my Discord down below. And I also want you guys to check out Six's channel. He makes solid Naruto content. I'll link it down in the description. And also don't forget to like and sub to, like, me as well. You can also check out these videos here too. Thank you for watching and peace out.